rising, y'all, or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. So, I was just watching this interview between Michael Franz, I think it's Franzese, and Big Homie Cece, and they were getting into a discussion about my hometown, and I thought it would be interesting to go live briefly and talk about it. So, let's get into it.
Very profound question. So here's the thing.
Uh,
There used to be leadership and infrastructure with all street gangs in Chicago. There was a time, and I remember when you needed permission if you were going to go shoot somebody. You needed permission, like if you wanted to commit a murder, it had to be sanctioned. People had to approve of such. So uh, throughout the process, when law enforcement had this war on drugs, a lot of the infrastructure and leadership was removed. So it just left madness. So then when certain gentrification took place, project housing was torn down, then they moved those families into the south suburbs. So now you got
Now, my era of living in the city, it ended before the projects was torn down. They hadn't done any of that yet. Um, I left home in 1991, early 1991, and everything was still as it was in the 80s and 70s.
people operating on a certain mentality getting moved throughout the city, which just led to nonsense and madness because it's blood feud, you know, and in Chicago, people believe in eye for eye, you know, and a lot of other cities, like I don't care what your race or nationality is. If you are born and raised in Chicago, you know, you're gonna have a little bit more proficiency to get violent with somebody if disrespect does occur and stuff like that. So the lack of leadership, um, you definitely should be able to send people in to try to mediate these blood feuds. They do it in Europe all the time.
Why do you think that nobody's tried to do that? You know, a while ago, I think about a year and a half ago, I sent a message to some people at Black Lives Matter. And I said, listen, young people are getting every weekend, you know, innocent people too in these drive-bys or whatever. I said, I'm willing to go in. I have some influence. I've spoken to a lot of these gangbangers. They happen to listen, you know, they pay attention, at least when I'm talking to them. But obviously then you have to follow up and help these guys. You can't just talk to them once and run out of there. What would you say would be a way to try to get to these kids and get this stuff, and I call them kids, I know young men is maybe what I should say, and get to them and make them stop, you know? How would you attack or approach that?
Hi, Puya.
So, you know, it's gonna take the faces of the culture in order to even make a attempt or make a dent in what's going on. So, you know, you're right. You know, most of them are kids. You know, you got guys committing murder before they have. You got guys getting life sentences as virgins. So
And see, that's weird to me because it seems like the city got a lot more violent after I left with the generations that came after ours. There was violence happening in the city, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't to the extent that it came to be in the 90s and beyond.
you know, in Chicago, the reverence that comes with your reputation, if you're known to be a killer, people are choosing that over being someone who gets a lot of money because it's a lot harder these days to make money off the street.
Mhm.
So, I was born into certain affiliations and, I've got a certain reach. So, I got programs that I sponsor to try to help at-risk youth and stuff like that. So, um, we definitely can set it up where people from your crowd, my crowd, we can get together and we can go into neighborhoods and directly negotiate for peace. It can be done. I've partaken in it, but it's gonna take people like yourself. It's gonna take people like myself. But like you just said, they'll listen, but they're gonna listen to people who they feel like is of cloth like they are. Because 90% of what's going on, bro, is based off mafia movies and books. Guarantee that. So like the
Yeah.
fact I'm able to speak to you in this dialogue, this gonna be interesting today for sure, for sure.
Well, let me tell you, I'll just put this out there, and I mean it because I've been speaking to these youngsters now.
That's very true. Chicago has a very strong mafia mentality, and vendettas are real. Retaliations are real. Violations are very real, and that's no lie.
For God, ever since I was in prison, back in the 80s and 90s, and I really have a heart for them. If there's any way that you feel that we can put something together, that I can contribute in some way, I'd be willing to do that because this is going on for
That
years.
goes all
I
the
mean,
way
every
back
week.
to the Scarface movie. That was a big hit in Chicago. Everybody loved Scarface in Chicago, and the Al Capone reality of Chicago's beginning.
And it's like it's being ignored. And nobody wants to get to the root issues and say, well, how do we get these kids out of this mess that they're in?
Yeah, yeah. There has to be options provided for you.
Exactly.
So there's some things we can do on that aspect of things, and then at the same time, you know, hip hop music definitely was an influencer for it to incite violence because a guy will go make a diss song, this is some his enemies. A record label
Mm.
will see he's doing numbers, come give this kid $1 million, and what is he gonna do? He's gonna continue. They're not gonna install mentorship because I played pro football first before I started my security business,
Did you?
and they put people along your path to help guide you a proper way,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're also this is the era of the babies' children that are running them up. Because I remember growing up in the '90s in Chicago, and it was the same thing, in my opinion. But the internet and availability for instant media is definitely putting a spotlight on it. And in Chicago, bro, like they believe let the animals kill each other.
Aspen Dental offers 20% off treatment plans for everyone. Book today.
Refresh the everyday with Mentos Gum. Yes to fresh.
In other news, Colorado residents are going to be happy to hear this. It just came out. There's a new website where any Colorado resident.
It's 2031, and I finally qualified for Mint 55 Plus, an exclusive.
That's why you'll see so many unclosed cases.
That's so interesting what you just said. It just even hit me that this is the era or the time of babies that have grown up now. It's terrible to think of that, but what chance do these young men have? They grew up like that. They don't know anything better. But you see, you're so right in one thing. Many, many, many years ago, I think it was in 1998, I was working with Major League Baseball, and I was speaking to athletes about gambling and about associations that they had, keeping them away, trying to keep them out of trouble. I've been doing that for almost 30 years now. But I was with Major League Baseball, and they asked me to come to a juvenile hall in Florida and speak to some of the young kids in there. So I said, okay. They said, we'll give you a half an hour.
All right.
And I said, a half an hour? What am I going to do in a half hour? I said, give me some time, you know? So I went in there. P.S. I was there for 3 hours. They let me go, right?
Sure, for sure. So, you know, growing up in the inner city of Chicago, you know, Italian culture, Sicilian culture, you know, those type of things are very prevalent.
Ecstasy, that was the one I wanted to touch on too.
Distinctly remember what the streets of Chicago were like before everyone was taking ecstasy on the weekend. Then it went to now people use it as a daily habit. Guys I thought were upstanding was getting caught with trans people.
Damn.
I seen this firsthand. I remember what the streets was like before the internet. I remember before the pills became a thing. It definitely played a role, for sure. And like, you know, and I always say this, like a man who's not raised with like some sort of gangster principles, only thing he really has to believe in is his wants and needs. You know, being in your position, being in my position, when you want to form a leadership, you know, there's certain things you know you can't do because, you know, they call me big homie. You gotta earn that. So, you know, I can't be doing the same thing the little homies is doing.
Right.
When they in the living room talking to the females, I'm in the room with the door closed because then now the lines get blurred now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you one of us or are you our leader? That's why when you see Combs, the people that's coming after him are always, everyone's younger than him. There's nobody older than him. The people who could have really combated him have died under strange circumstances. You know, this is the only industry we see where people have interns. They'll come work for years for free for the thought of having a big career. You're not gonna be an intern at Walmart.
Yeah.
It's all about taking advantage of people. That's why I've been going back and forth with these people for years.
Let me ask you, changing gears a little bit. R. Kelly, you grew up with him, right?
Grew up around here for sure.
Yeah. What kind of guy? He's got his hands full now, for sure.
Now listen, I swear on my mother, I never liked this dude. The people in my family, in my church, they would say, why they bringing this in? They were saying this years ago. You know, I know dudes who took their daughter to him for voice lessons. He go pick his daughter up. He got $50,000 cash with him now. That's the thing, bro. Like these people all were getting enabled in different areas. You know, like in my family, people knew. When they come to my little cousins, my aunties, and them, like, man, like, it's gonna be heinous consequences for you if you decide that you want to try to oppress any of these people right here. These guys, they hire a security, they feel invincible. You know that that's like I know that in certain organizations there are rules. And I heard you say something before that you say they'll never get me in a room again. These guys don't have that. Nobody can call them into a room.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be graveyard consequences. They don't have that.
Yeah.
Now operate underneath that, and they got unlimited money, and everybody want to be a celebrity.
Yeah, the problem.
They don't have that.
Yeah.
Now operate underneath that, and they got unlimited money, and everybody want to be a celebrity.
Yeah, the problem, homie, they're not accountable to anybody but themselves. And
That's a big problem.
And accountability, as you know, is very important in life. You have to have accountability, whether it be to your faith, your boss, yourself, Without it, there's no rules, and eventually you're going to go down. You're going to get in trouble for it, and that's what happened. I think Diddy the same thing. He was accountable to nobody. At least he thought he wasn't until it catches up with you.
Until it's just too late.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. All these celebrities getting in trouble in Chicago, all of that came after I was gone. I don't know what's come over people, but I'll tell you this. Once I had children, which wasn't long after my mother and I had moved out of the city, once I had children, I knew that I couldn't go back. And that still makes me sad sometimes to the day because I love Chicago. It will always be home. I was born and bred there, between Chicago and Minnesota. So it will always be home. But having children, my first priority is my children's safety. And just my personal opinion, I don't feel like um, Chicago is a safe haven for children. So I don't want to raise my children in that environment. It does breed hardness, callousness, and a combative nature. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I wanted to share that with y'all. If you are from the city or have a love for the city and would like to comment below, I would love to read your comment and react to it. Uh, Other than that, though, I hope you guys have a great day. Happy Tuesday. Be safe.